We're so back indeed. Put the word out. We're back up. Yes, I suppose I should be introducing these things when I start them because they get saved on my YouTube and people watch them again. So, welcome back to our regular streams. There's no schedule for these. I just do them when I think I have the time. Usually my evenings are spent watching a movie. If I watched a movie earlier in the day, then I'll switch out streaming for a movie for evening streaming. And I did watch a movie earlier today. I watched The Return of the Jedi at a local theater with my son. It was a good time. And then otherwise, streaming happens usually midweek in the afternoons when I have when I'm not on deadline, basically. When I'm not on deadline, when I don't have to edit or post a video, we'll do a stream. When I'm not reading, I'm like reading. What am I reading right now? Right now, I'm reading The Trajectory of Power, The Rise of the Strongman Presidency, which is actually a really interesting history of the administrative state and the executive office of the presidency. It's good. And I'm also reading another book on my Kobo here, my Kobo Libra Color. And the book I'm reading here is called Telling the Truth About History. I don't know why the Emperor wants to do such a thing. I'm barely paying attention to the plot in this game. But I feel compelled to read through, so here we go. I think I'm going to play all the Game Boy Advance Fire Emblems. There's two others. There's one that I played before. This is the Sacred Stones. And then there's one that I've never played that was only released in Japan, but I think there's a fan translation. Do I have any opinions on the balance between NIMBYism and gentrification? I hope that's not too inherently wonky. I have a question. So I'll be honest with you. I don't like the word gentrification, in part because it's sort of an empty signifier. It means a lot of things to a lot of people. Like, there's a technical meaning, but it just as likely means I see people in my neighborhood I don't like, right? A shop opens up that I don't like. It can just mean change, right? So gentrification, in a technical sense, is when property values in an area rise such that in a formerly low-income area rise such that it becomes a burden on existing residents, and it often leads to displacement. The cause of gentrification, and here's where we get into tricky things. The cause of gentrification generally is supply constraints. Often the reason why low-income areas see a big surge of various kinds of investment income or just new capital is because the capital has nowhere else to go. And it's usually because of tight restrictions on building. And like clockwork, if you show me a place that's had population growth but no job growth, population growth, but no housing growth. Population growth, job growth, no housing growth. I will show you gentrification in low-income areas. And so, like, the way to prevent gentrification is just to keep building, like keep up the pace of housing construction, especially in places that are already affluent, right? That can already absorb new influxes of capital. No one likes any of that. I once suggested that on Blue Sky, and it resulted in people accusing me of being anti-black because I was like, if you want to have investments in low-income black communities but avoid the gentrification and displacement, then you build the housing in the already affluent places. And the response was, well, so you don't want black people to get new housing? No, I didn't say that. But if you want to deal with this one problem, this is the likely solution. And people got very upset with me, and so I don't talk about it anymore because it sort of makes people angry, and I don't feel people getting angry at me for kind of dry technocratic views. So, 'cause, 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 ' So in the absence, so it's like that's that. So I think YIMBYism has like a solution for gentrification that is like just the construction of housing. I think how do I put this? I'll put it this way. I live in a neighborhood that is not quite, it's not gentrified, but there's some new housing. There's still a lot of low income and public housing. It's sort of a little isolated from amenities. It's a place where I wish my working class neighbors didn't have to drive a couple miles to go to the grocery store, right? I wish they could just walk somewhere. I wish there were better walking infrastructure. I wish there were better biking infrastructure. I don't like that one implication of like really intensely anti-gentrification views. So there's sort of like, there's any attempt to attract new investment, build new stuff, might displace people. And so you can't do it. Is that it kind of suggests that the way that like you want to keep these places impoverished. And I don't like that. So what can you do? You can increase public amenities, right? This sidewalks, better public transit, that kind of thing. If you live in a locality where there's like there's public housing building, you can do that. Subsidized housing, publicly subsidized housing, you can do that. But here's the thing, any improvements you make are going to increase the desirability of a place. And so, beyond that, I think that the other solution, beyond that, and then like, restrict, kind of making sure new market rate housing isn't being solely constructed in these areas. This is another parenthetical here. I myself am uncomfortable with interventions that suggest that what we want to do is like maintain like income segregation. I think that's bad. So I don't know. The other thing you can do is try to attract jobs to areas, right? Like put the jobs next in these places as much as possible, and have preferences for locals when it comes to hiring, like kind of get incomes up. But there's a certain extent to which if you are investing in a place, it's just going to make it more attractive. And them's the breaks. And if that's something you find unacceptable, then I don't know what to tell you. Like we can do everything we can to avoid displacement. We can do everything we can to make sure new amenities and benefits extend to the people there. We can do everything we can to provide loans and capital for people to do home improvements, to people to start business. We can do all of that, and I think we should. But you make a place nicer, people are going to want to live there. And there's not really any avoiding that. At the risk of offending you, that's a really weird thing to say. Jelly Slap, BlackRock does not own all the houses. This is, I have various views that get people really mad. This is one of them. This has become like a shibboleth. The only thing wrong with the housing market is that private equity buys all the housing. Private equity companies, last I checked, owned, when it comes to total housing stock in the country, own something like 2 to 3% of it. When it comes to single family housing stock, that goes up to like maybe 5 or 6%. But it's like a truly minuscule amount of housing stock is owned by private equity. There are particular markets where it's more concentrated. And in those markets, the private equity companies will tell you in their prospectuses, right? Because these are investments. They're trying to earn returns for their investors. They will tell you in their prospectuses that they buy the housing in supply constrained markets because there is a much better rate of return, which tells you what the problem is. Like they are telling you what the problem is. If the rate of return were lower because there was a glut of housing it would be a less profitable investment and they probably wouldn't make it. It's very straightforward. Private equity hardly owns any housing. The landlords that own rental stock are overwhelmingly mom and pop. Overwhelmingly a couple individuals who maybe own 5 or 6, 7 units, right? A couple houses, an apartment complex. Like overwhelmingly, it is mom and pop landlords. Yeah. The private equity stuff is a red herring. It's a total red herring. Yeah, Blackstone. Sorry. Yeah, whatever. I mean, the thing about the lack of construction of housing stock is it's primarily a state and local story. It's primarily a story of incumbent homeowners making it incredibly difficult to build new housing stock. That's the story. I live in Charlottesville, Virginia. We're kind of typical here. Back in 1992, homeowners in Charlottesville voted to downzone the city and make new housing construction highly discretionary unless it was a single family home. And that's the case in a lot of places. In a lot of places, it is illegal to build, for example, it is illegal to build 2, 3, or 4 units on a single lot. It's illegal to build homes, apartment complexes, apartment buildings, any kind of multifamily or multi-unit housing. It's illegal here in Charlottesville. It's illegal to build homes without a significant setback. You have to have like a nice setback before you can build the house, which again constrains. There are parking requirements that make it illegal to build units without a certain amount of parking. Like that's the issue. Now there are other things, right? Like federal retrenchment from the construction of public housing, federal retrenchment from the provision of housing vouchers, right? Section 8 is not an entitlement, right? It's not like food stamps, and it's chronically underfunded. Like there are a lot of things, but the single largest reason why there has not been enough housing construction is just that it's actually illegal in many places in the country to build a lot of housing. I mean, I think the abundance take is basically what I'm describing, right? That like it's which is sort of the YIMBY take, which is that there is a regulatory constraint in the construction of new housing. Right. So in Chicago, there's an alderman who's trying to make it harder to build multifamily housing in favor of single family housing. Yeah. So multifamily housing gentrifying. Yeah. People think of like apartments or like, 3plexes, 4plexes, 5plexes as like gentrifying housing, and single family housing as sort of like, for working people. But like a single family home is the most expensive form of housing. I once it's worth looking up, building associations, they put out information about like how much it costs to build stuff, right? It's worth looking it up. Like, and they're trying to turn profits, right? Like they're trying to, they get loans from banks, they're trying to turn profit. They're trying to usually, 7, 8, 9% return, 10% return. 10% is actually high, more like 7 to 8% return. And it's like, if it costs $600,000 for the lot, $500,000 for the lot and you build a single family home, that's luxury housing. I don't think the abundance take isn't that environmentalists and unions are primarily responsible for the lack of new housing. Their overall take is that it's like there's too many housing regulations. Their explanation for the number why there's so many housing regulations does touch a lot of different groups. I would say it's primarily homeowners, but I do think that there are like really onerous environmental review regulations. This is the case in California, that make it difficult to build new housing. That become what they become. What they become are tools, like discretionary tools for blocking housing. And so, I mean, the solution there is to move up the decision making level from the local to the state level. You have to remove some discretion. You have to introduce basically the rule of law to housing construction, that if you meet the standards for the project, then you can build. You don't have to go through a bunch of hoops. Because first of all, the only people who can go through all the hoops are large developers with lots of money and who have an interest, right, in kind of doing as much as they can to maximize their returns. They are going to build the most expensive forms of housing. Rule of law in housing, where you just meet the requirements and you can build, benefits smaller builders, people who might make their money through volume, not necessarily through single large projects. Someone's asking me if I'm a watch guy. I really do seem like I should be a watch guy, but I'm not a watch guy. I mean, character of the town argument is usually bad when it comes to housing. When it comes to like data centers, yeah, that is totally legit. But when it comes to housing, absolutely, I think it's bad. I mean, okay, this is interesting. Here's the question. The right has done a spectacular job of creating straight ticket voters that have not seemingly adjusted to the MAGA takeover. Is the Republican Party of small government dead and gone? Well, I don't think the Republican Party of small government ever really existed. But what's interesting, actually, is that a bunch of MAGA voters, at least, aren't straight ticket. They only vote for Trump when he's on the ballot, and the otherwise don't come out. And this is kind of the issue. This is the problem. I should probably. I never really share the live stream. I should do that. Here we go. All right, back to playing. Okay, here we go. Yeah, I mean, once there's a Dem president again, there will of course be people who are like, we have to, you know. All right. Let us see here. Do I think Trump knows about the 40K universe? I probably not. I don't know. I'm sure, you know, maybe he has some chud staffers who have tried to sell him on 40K stuff. Yeah, so I think Rubio is probably the party's strongest 2028 contender, for the simple reason that he still codes as a regular Republican. Vance doesn't. Beyond the fact that Vance just kind of like is kind of unlikable, I think he's just too associated with Trump. People asking me about Advance Wars. I love Advance Wars. I played the hell out of the recent remake for Switch. Yeah, that sucks. They should remake Days of Ruin. They should remake the one for whatchamacallit, Dual Strike. I'd love to see that as well. I love all those games. No, but Rubio just still sounds like a normal Republican politician. You can kind of perform in that register, and I think that makes him relatively formidable. But here's the thing, as always, what's going to shape 2028 the most is just like overall conditions. And the fact of the matter is that there's a very good chance that the country's going to be on like the verge of collapse come 2028. And there's just not going to be very much that any Republican can do to recover after that. My favorite OG expanded universe character is Corran Horn. If you think the country would be on the brink of collapse, what do you think of those lib lefts recommending folks arm themselves? It strikes me as rather paranoid, not going to lie. I mean, you know, I come from a family of gun owners. I'm not like opposed to people owning guns. I do think that arming yourself for some sort of conflict probably is a little paranoid. If you want to try, you know, armed self-defense, I think you should go for it. I'm pro that. But, ooh, Killer Lands. So, okay, 2008 plus Iraq should have been enough to lose for a generation, but well, okay, so here's the thing. I'm gonna, a little history lesson. Yeah, so first, yes, in 76, Ford came very close to winning even after Watergate and pardoning Nixon. But like, so the Democratic Party in 1860 was primarily a Southern party, and many, if not most of its members went on to join the Confederacy, to split the Union. And then those Northern Democrats were, you know, unrepentant opponents of Lincoln throughout. The Democrats were widely associated with traitors, right? Civil War happens, hundreds of thousands dead. Democratic Party ostensibly in total disgrace. Democrats go in this, so 1865, right? And then they lose the 1868 presidential election, all right? And they lose the 1872 presidential election. They crush the 1874 midterms and nearly win the 1876 election, right? So I want you to hear what I'm saying. The party associated with rebellion and a catastrophic civil war basically comes back within 10 years. Political memories are very short. They're incredibly short. And so you would think maybe that 2008 would be enough to do it, right? But it just isn't. It just is not. Let's see here. Nope, that is a death trap. Political memories are short, and so if you want to sustain a political coalition over the long term, you have to work institutionally, right? You have to build institutions that are going to benefit your party. That's what the New Deal was. The New Deal was a set of institutions that that entrenched the Democratic Party is, or that coalition into government for, a generation. And so that would be my recommendation, right? Like if I were saying what should Democrats do after this, would be to build out institutions as much as possible, political reforms, new institutions that could help entrench the Democratic coalition going forward. I'm being asked, so why do leftists blame neolibs for Trump's rise? This is another one of the situations where I really like people's definitions and terminology are off. There is a way of thinking about this that is like rigorous, and that is that the particular mix of forces that produce Trump are shaped by the neoliberal consensus that takes form in the 1970s, that state retrenchment is free-flowing capital and globalization, hostile to labor and workers' rights, all these things. That's a totally, I think, legitimate way of thinking about the forces that produce the populist turn in global politics. But typically when people are talking about this, they're saying sort of like people I don't like on the internet who are like less lefty than me, they're neolibs and they're responsible for Trump. And I just think that's a little silly. In part because this happens a lot. Like people just like to deny the agency of the political right, but like ultimately who's responsible for Trump are the conservatives that supported him and aided his rise. You can fault various flavors of liberal, various flavors of center-left people for not being effective enough opposition, for not taking seriously the aforementioned larger forces that help produce all of this. But the people in the driver's seat here were actually conservatives. I mean, the interesting thing, I'm getting TikTok questions as well, so I'm going to respond to those as well. No, I think institutions. I think institutions, including the press, took the far right didn't take the far right seriously enough. But like, how do I put this? How do I put this? How do I think about this? I'm generally skeptical. Like, I'm sort of somewhat skeptical of the very like monocausal explanations of Trump, in part because like they kind of prove too much until you say, you know, neoliberals and moderates are why Trump won in rural Pennsylvania. Then why wasn't there a Trump-like phenomena in 1996, right? When Bill Clinton was at the top of the ticket, right? Why was it that Al Gore did reasonably well in those same areas in 2000? You know, like what explain? Like there needs to be some other thing, right? And so yes, maybe I would say it's the larger conditions for a Trump, for the populist turn, are structured by these larger forces in the political economy of the United States, right? But then there are like contingent choices made, and then there are like other forces, right, that like kind of shape the matrix of possible explanations. And so in the United States, like one of those is race, right? Like for a critical number of voters, race is the thing that like structures the explanation for the things that they experience. And so for a variety of reasons, a lot of it due to the decline of unions, I'd say, but there's no working vocabulary for I'm experiencing economic deprivation. And so in a previous world of the working vocabulary was, and it's because of the bosses, it's because of the companies, the fat cats, and so on and so forth. That degraded. And the kinds of mediating institutions that would help spread it, help inculcate it, are gone. And the one that's left, the explanation that's left, is the one that has always had a lot of currency in American politics, which is like race, which is, well, the immigrants did it, or the blacks are taking more than their fair share, and so on and so forth. And so Trump makes the choice, right? Donald Trump makes the choice to utilize that rhetoric. And so that rhetoric interacts with like the conditions, interacts with like the larger social forces to produce a bunch of people who voted for Democrats 20 years ago voting for Trump now. And you can't isolate any one of those things and say, well, that's the thing. You have to be able to look at it holistically. Right. I mean, the point, not that there wasn't a Trump figure in the mid '90s. The point is like, why didn't that person find more political success? Is the answer, the question you have to ask. And it's because there are multiple things happening. Yes, I know Perot is a Trump-like figure, in Buchanan and the like. My good friend John Gans wrote a book about all this that we've talked about a lot and I've read, so I get it. But the point is that the larger point is that like you have to look at the there's a number of things happening simultaneously, and you have to take all of those things seriously. But the other thing, I mean, what I want to say is I do want to emphasize the agency of the right, which is just like not a thing people like to do. Someone mentioned Sam Moyn, who is a Yale political theorist, who is very anti-liberal and and this is a common trope that like everything the right does is a reaction to the left's overreach. And I just think that's false, right? Like the political right in this country is its own thing with its own aims and its own goals and its own plans. And it acts. It acts on the world, right? It acts on politics. It can take advantage of missteps and overreach by the left, but its actions are not caused by that. These aren't people who are like, oh, we would have been normal participants in American society if not for the left, right? They have their own plans, and there's a real refusal to take that seriously, and that refusal to take the agency of the right seriously explains a lot of just like bad predictions. So like a guy like Moyne or my former colleague Ross Douthat, you know, were like, oh, this can't possibly be fascist. There's not going to be a coup attempt back in 2020. You know, and so much of that is based on this idea that these movements are fundamentally only backlashes and are only responsible to weaknesses among liberals, among the left, that it's the failure of liberals that have caused all of this, not people making choices and taking advantage of opportunities that present themselves. And so if you reject either explicitly or implicitly the agency of the right, you will miss that they're going to do things. Yeah, Douthat's at CBS now. I mean, yeah, people think that people. Two reasons why no one ever focuses on the agency of the right. One is that so much of left-wing discourse happens in, like, the people who do the discourse live in big blue cities, right? They live in blue states, that kind of thing. And so what they're responding to for the most part are Democrats and liberals. And like Democrats encompass a wide number of groups, from sort of like, you know, left liberals to, you know, basically conservatives. And so people get negatively polarized against all the liberals around them. And then they begin to think, well, the liberals are the problem. If you remove the liberals, then we could do the things necessary to win. And I just, as someone who has lived in the South his entire life, for the most part, other than like an 8-year sojourn in Washington, D.C., I've been in the South my whole life. And, you know, in the South, we have Republicans. And it's hard to think of Republicans of not as of the right of not having agency when you just like when they're there, you see them act, right? You see them do things, and you see that they're not, you know, that they're not like, you see that like even the most, you know, timid and frustrating liberals are not hard right conservatives. The other thing I think people really struggle with, and this is everyone, this is everyone. People really struggle with the idea that other people really believe what they say, and really believe what they advocate for, and really have differing opinions. People really struggle with the idea that, like, no, people just aren't confused. This isn't false consciousness. They genuinely have different worldviews than you, and value different things than you do. People have a real hard time with that. Someone over at the TikTok says, I don't care about politics anymore. Both parties are two sides of the same coin. You must be like 16, right? Like that's I feel like that's a thing. I feel like that's the thing that you believe when you're young. I hate to sound kind of condescending, but it boggles my mind to be able to look at the current situation. This government, the government in power right now, has knocked millions of people off of food stamps, will knock millions off of Medicaid, has made disastrous cuts to the social safety net and will leave a lot of people starving and dying. That's not like, I don't understand how you look at that and say, well, the two sides are the same. I just don't. This person says they're 33, in which case they have no excuse. They should just go read a book. Because as some of you have pointed out, it not only is it not the case that the two sides of the same coin, but the parties today are more ideologically distinct than they've ever been since like the middle of the 19th century. That's just a fact. And when to be clear, none of this is to say that the Democratic Party is perfect or great or even particularly good, but it is just to be clear about the fact that, like, in fact, one party does believe in utilizing government to solve social problems, and the other party believes in utilizing government to dominate people it believes to be its social lessers, to exclude them, to ostracize them, and to cause them pain and inflict pain on them. And, it's not cool, right? Like, and I mean this, I mean this quite seriously. It is still a shortcut to being taken seriously, to be above it all, to do the kind of both sides thing, to do the thing where you position yourself as you knowingly, a knowing sort of sense that, the right might be, irresponsible, but the left is overbearing, like that kind of thing. And I just don't engage in that, because that kind of positioning, that kind of branding, to me is just like unresponsive to the fact that, like, there are real things at stake here for actual human beings, not just our reputations, not just how we're perceived, but like, people are dead, right? Who would otherwise be alive because Donald Trump is in office. So. Sorry, I'm not gonna. I don't want to pick on this person over here, but like, quote, thinking government will save people is high school thinking. Way too much corruption on both sides. It's like, how do you even engage with that? This is not someone who's actually thinking about what's like the facts on the ground, who's actually thinking about what is happening to human beings on the ground. Thinking government will save people is high school thinking. I don't know if government will save anyone, but government can make sure that a family, a low-income family, can feed their kids, right? Government can do that. Government can help people get health care. Government can help people find a place to live. Like, government can do that. Is that saving people? I don't know, but it can do that. And maybe my horizons are just too low, but I've been to places in this country where the ground is soaked with sewage because there is no money to deal with it. I've been to places in this country where people are malnourished because they can't get the money to feed their kids. You know? I've met people who have to decide between heating their homes, putting food on the table, getting medicine. I've known people in my own life who have struggled in exactly this way. And if you're going to tell me that it doesn't matter who we put in office, I'm just going to look at you like you're crazy. It's not that I think that there are good guys and bad. Well, take that back. Not that I think that liberalism, Democratic Party are perfect. Again. But I do know that this is at least the coalition of people that wants to utilize the levers of government to help people. And my big complaint about them is that they're not aggressive enough. They don't think expansively enough. They're not committed enough to that. So anyway, get off my soapbox a bit. No, Trump didn't disprove the median voter idea. Sometimes I feel like your rhetoric is too abstract. What was abstract about anything I just said? I mean, the interesting thing is that when you ask voters, like, you know, who is the most moderate candidate in 2024 or 2020, they'll say Trump. You have to remember the Trump that the typical voter sees is not the Trump that we see. I mean, you know, not to, the streams. No, 30% approval is very low. 30%. So, okay. I'm never going to finish this map. Not feasible to return to normalcy if the Trump leaves office. 30% approval is very low, because just partisanship means that there's a relatively high floor. And I mean, consider this. In 1932, Herbert Hoover, I want to say, got something like 44% of the vote, right? Herbert Hoover mismanaged the Great Depression and still got like a solid plurality of the vote, right? It's the floor, practically speaking, the floor for approval for a president is never going to go below 39.6. Okay, thank you. So close to 40%. Practically speaking, it's not going to go below, yeah, 25%. There'd have to be a fundamental change to there would have to be a fundamental change to, I think, there has to be like fundamental changes to like the society for you to start getting below those numbers. Yeah, I'm playing this on the hardest difficulty, so I'm just being a little cautious here. And so to be more specific about the Democrats, I would say that just sort of like, I mean, this is why I'm very positive about the DSA, that I think that even among, that there's a basic lack of ambition and like aggression and like desire to do the performance of politics among, you know, the traditional leadership, basically sort of like the people who've been leading the Democratic Party for the past 20 years. Jeffries is part of this group, Schumer, obviously, like that whole class of people. There's a real timidity. There's a vision of politics that eschews conflict and eschews attention grabbing in favor of being a show horse, or being a workhorse rather, not a show horse, in favor of staying quiet, in favor of not courting controversy, that I just think doesn't work. I think that it's possible to have everything from, you know, conservative Democratic politics to left-wing Democratic politics, and be able to do politics in a way that actually that actually responds to the things people want. I do think that kind of progressive populism is the policy platform that actually is going to end up being responsive to the largest number of people. But even still, I just think that there is, like, I think too many Democrats in the leadership and the kinds of people that leadership selects for are playing the game as if it's 1996 or 2006 and not 2026. Yeah, Ossoff is like the moderate Democrat who I think gets it. What's my take on invalidating the 2028 Trump pardons? Yeah, I mean, I personally think that the DOJ should, a Democratic DOJ, just investigate these people and just like make the constitutional argument that the pardons were corrupt and thus invalid. But you want to do everything you can, so there should be. a Democratic Congress should create civil liability for everyone pardoned. Jamel, as someone who really studies history, I was wondering, was there a huge conspiracy theory surrounding presidential assassinations before modern media, let's say pre-TV? That's a good question. I have to assume that there were. But I don't know. I don't have an answer for that off the top of my head. Yeah, someone asked me, and I wrote about this, wrote a column about this. Someone asked me what, on the stream, if there's a return to normalcy. And I think the first step towards actually getting past the Trump era is recognizing that the old republic is dead. The old republic has fallen, and whatever comes next has to be new, has to be reconstructed. There's no returning to the old ways. Biden was an attempt to return to the old ways. Someone asked me twice how I thought historians might judge Biden. I think Biden's going to get low ratings precisely because he thought that you could go back to the old way. But you couldn't. Old way's gone. Old way's dead. What the hell just happened there? I mean, what people are asking of no importance is like conspiracy theorizing. And I'm just not sure. I did read Asita's The Right of the People. I do recommend it. I did a great event with him on the publication of the book when it came out. See, I don't think it's going to be current Dem leadership that really is able to bring the country back. You know, it's going to be people whose political experience is the Trump era, or people who, you know, my political experience begins with W. Like, I've never existed in a time when Republicans weren't totally off the rails and actively dangerous to not just the interest of ordinary people, but the national interest. You know, I feel like one of the things that maybe distinguishes me as a commentator is that I just have no illusions about what the Republican Party is, and I'm not one of these people who lives in a total urban progressive bubble, and so the people who annoy me the most are like other urban progressives, right? Like there's you know, anti-woke centrist commentators who are basically obsessed with people who annoy them in Brooklyn. Like, it's not me. I'm obsessed with destructive Republican lawmakers. That's what I'm obsessed with. And so it's someone mentioned my latest pod with Gans. I describe myself as like anti-woke, in part because I don't find I find the whole anti-woke obsession to be just like pure decadence on part of people who are just engaged in an extended branding exercise and are kind of like oblivious to like the actual real challenges and problems facing the country, and who ignore those things and focus their attention instead on, you know, tenure committees, and like the closed world of elite colleges. No, my politics isn't designed against HR people, right? My politics isn't a response to someone using pronouns. Why did some of these centrist people go insane? Were they always this stupid? Yes. They went insane because I don't know. I honestly, I on a like a fundamental level, I actually don't get it. Cause it's like, because it feels so solipsistic, you know. It feels sort of like the only thing that matters to them is like what makes them, what makes them not annoyed. And you know, I mean, I'm basically talking about if you kind of like subtract Adam Serwer from the mix, like the most prominent people at the Atlantic, right? Like your Thomas Chatton Williamses and your Tyler Austin Harpers and your Helen Lewises, like people whose sole obsession really seems to be glorified faculty lounge arguments. Even stuff that you think be in their wheelhouse, they don't really care about because it doesn't like relate to them or affect them in any way. So right, like if you cared about merit in society, you ought to be apoplectic at the fact that Pete Hegseth is basically destroying the careers of an entire cohort of capable officers because they're black or they're women, just destroying their careers and harming the country's national security in the process. But none of these people give a shit about that because they don't know anyone in the military. You know, I come from a military family. All that stuff actually kind of personal to me. But they don't know anyone in the military. It doesn't occur to them to think about that. So why would they care? For my part, like I'm aware of discourse about me. Like I'm aware that you know, I have, we'll say peers, like other commentators view me as one note, as boring, as partisan, as someone who, you know, you don't take seriously because they're not like engaged in the higher issues. They don't have, I'm not a nuanced enough thinker. I'm aware that is a thing that exists in the world, the target of ridicule and opprobrium. And my perspective on this is, at first, I'm not writing for those people. I'm writing for you guys. I'm writing for the broad public. I'm attempting to show people how this nation's history matters for thinking about the present politics, trying to show what we can learn from our nation's history, trying to stand up for kind of the left liberal tradition in American politics, trying to not just articulate the problems, the narrow problems with the current government, the current moment, but like the larger kind of political, theoretical, and structural issues at work, and trying to provide a way for people to think about what comes next and act on what comes next. Like I feel my writing is geared towards helping people better understand their country and be better citizens. And that's why I keep the job at the time, because it's a big platform for us to reach people. It's why I do the YouTube, because it's a big platform from which to reach people. It's why I do these streams, it's why I do the TikTok, it's why I do everything, is to actually speak to regular people as much as they are and provide political education to people. That's what I'm doing. I'm engaged in a project of political education. And I know it pays dividends because I meet people who tell me that they get involved in their communities because of something that I wrote, that they are studying history because of something that I wrote, that they're going to law school and pursuing law because of something that I wrote. I know it's doing something. So do I get invited to fancy panels very often? No. Do I get invited to the cool parties? No. But I know I'm doing that. And that's what matters to me. Favorite Civil War battle is Vicksburg. No, game didn't freeze. I'm just someone mentioned something, and I wanted to see what the reference was, but the chat's moving too quickly. No, I got distracted. Game didn't freeze. I just got distracted. Yeah, Brooks hasn't been a columnist for like for a while now, so I felt totally comfortable just talking a bit of shit. Yeah, I'm capable of being incredibly still. Part of this is because when I was a kid, I was a church usher and had to be still for long periods of time. Yeah, we have enough healing items to make sure that Kyle doesn't die. Boom. Someone said something. Oh, someone asked me if I was going to write about the R-Day situation. Absolutely not. I feel sorry for that poor man and his family. I feel sorry that it was hounded by chuds. To the extent that I have any thoughts about it, it's that like it seems like he was an academic fraud, and for that there should have been sanction, right? But the reason why this became a thing was not because he was an academic fraud. It was because he's black. And it became a way for people to voice their resentments towards black people in elite positions, in positions of influence, in positions like the one I have. I'll never forget when I got my job at the Times. There were people. Am I about to lose this? God damn it. Oh, man. That sucks. All right, well, I gotta go to bed soon anyway. So we'll try this again another time. I'll just for now I'll stick to answering your questions for another 10 or 15 minutes. Man, that sucks. Let's see here. Oh, here we go. Oh, I should change the text here. Oh, what did I just do? There you go. Hide. There we go. Hello. Yeah, the last time I used this particular screen was the State of the Union. So we'll hang out here for 10 more minutes. I'm not going yet. I am a Fire Emblem fraud. I made a misstep. I made a mistake. I am interested in Fortune's Weave. You like my sunflowers? Yes. So I buy flowers every week. No, I should call the chat the State of the Union. That is, it's very fun. It's very grandiose, you know. I feel like this is going to be terrible for my reputation that I lost that Fire Emblem battle. Listen, I made a mistake. I did not think that was going to happen. I am playing on the highest difficulty. Give me a break. Okay. Mistakes were made. What was I going to say? I was going to say a couple things. Lots of things happening. So I buy flowers every week because I think it's nice to do. And I buy flowers every time I go grocery shopping every week. Whenever I buy flowers, someone's always like, "Oh, buying them for your wife." And I'm like, "No, I'm not buying it for my wife. I am married." Someone asked if I married and I have children. I'm married. I have 2 children. I buy them because they're nice. Okay, when I first got hired. And they made the announcement on social media, on Twitter. There were like peers of mine, who were like, "Oh, cannot believe they're giving this job to Bowie," kind of deal. And that stuff still circulates. And it used to really bother me. But I'm older now. I got other stuff to worry about besides that. And I know, I have I've won awards for my work. They're around here. And I know that there's no amount of achievement, external validation that I will get that for some people will ever persuade them that I deserve the job that I have, that I'm good at it. And so I don't have to worry about it. But this goes back to the Arde thing, right? I feel like people should be able to hold 2 thoughts in mind: that the guy was a fraud. Someone said that it seemed like he might have had psychological issues going on. That seems likely. A lot of people put him in a position he shouldn't have been put in. The second thought is that this has no bearing on black scholars as a whole, none whatsoever. In the same way that academic fraud among a white scholar has no bearing on white scholars. But the reason why Arde became this subject of obsessive attention is just because he's black. and his fraud validates a view that people have, that black people in positions of influence, authority, especially if it's intellectual, smart guy jobs, don't deserve to be there. Yeah, I saw the clips of the guy who accused him too, and not he wasn't just an evil racist. He looked like he was a cursed Victorian doll. You know, he looked like the caricature of a guy who gets shoved in a locker. I mean, he looks like. I mean, it was clearly. This is clearly the guy that they accused. It was clearly a guy who's like angry and jealous and resentful over being in mediocrity, and the only thing he thinks he has going for him is the color of his skin. And so that's what he obsesses over. Um, Someone said, "Don't put it in the newspaper that I died in Fire Emblem. Please don't put it in the newspaper that I died in Fire Emblem." I swear, I was paying attention to the chat. I was paying more attention to the chat because oftentimes when I play, I'm paying way more attention to the game. This is the first time you guys have ever seen me play any game that I fucked up like this. Yeah, it's your fault. It's all your fault. That's right. Um, uh, no, I made, I misstepped. We'll try again another time. I've actually been playing Fire Emblem Path of Radiance on the GameCube Virtual Console, and it's a lot of fun. It's very good, and I've been playing it. My kids have been watching me play it, and it's actually great because there's so many characters in these games that we can kind of like read. We can read the story along, and so like I'll do a voice. My son who reads will do a voice. If my wife's in the room, she'll do a voice, and we'll kind of just like go along. And it's a lot of fun. That's a game I think deserves a remaster. The one thing I don't like about Path of Radiance though is like sacred stones will tell you like the amount of damage you're gonna do and like if you're gonna do a double hit, and I have not figured out on Path of Radiance whether or not you get that information when you're like going up for combat. Maybe it's there and I just not noticing it, but I was asked if I liked the Odyssey. I did like the Odyssey. I think on my letterbox I gave it 3.5 stars. And my take, I thought it was a perfectly fine movie. My take is that like it's basically in conversation with The Dark Knight and Oppenheimer. They're all kind of the same movie in a lot of ways. What's the hardest kind of video game to play for you? Fighting games. I'm not. I do not have the manual dexterity and the speed to do fighting games well. At my best, when I was younger, I could get. I was like pretty good at Soul Calibur and Virtua Fighter, but like and Smash, but never good enough to be like really competitive. Yeah, I feel like fighting games are really a young man's sport, young man's game. Not just don't have the dexterity for it. Who did I play in Smash? I was either Fox or Falco. First person shooters, I wasn't big in the first person shooters. There was like a point when I was a teenager that I was really into Unreal Tournament and was pretty good at it. But someone asked me how old I am. I'm 39. I turned 39 this past April. Born in 1987. I'm sort of like right in the middle of the millennial cohort. Yeah, when we installed it on a bunch of school computers and would play after school. LAN parties, that's right. Blank check Scorsese. Yes. Stay tuned. It's not going to be one that you expect. Have I played any Souls likes? The only Souls like that I've really put any serious time into. Jamel breaking down silence. That's close. That's close. What did I think of The Departed? I liked The Departed quite a bit. Who's my favorite director? It's Sidney Lumet is my favorite director. My kids are 10 and 13. What older movies are essential for them? Well, and someone asked me what my favorite Lumet is. This isn't my favorite Lumet, but I think it's an essential movie. 12 Angry Men. I think 12 Angry Men is a phenomenal film. One of the best ever made. And it's a great film about being a citizen, about living in a democracy, about living with others. So 12 Angry Men, I think, is an essential movie. My favorite Sidney Lumet is this should not shock you, given recent work of mine, is Network, which if you buy the Criterion edition of Network, you will find an essay that I wrote about the movie in the case. This is the William Friedkin 12 Angry Men remake. I did see it. I think it's quite good. Yeah, Lumet made two movies about the faith and the civic virtues of juries 3 decades apart, and there's a fascinating continuity in that. Yeah, the verdict, the verdict is an incredible movie. You should see it. My favorite director still working. That's a great question. Looking at my shelf right now. Favorite director still working. I have a couple different answers for that, but for now I'm going to say Jane Campion. Some Lumet movies that I think are underseen but worth watching. Serpico. Prince of the City. And what else? Failsafe. If I were given a budget of $100 million for a 7-season TV epic, what would you choose to make? I would finish NBC's Kings, a show that I really liked. NBC's Kings is such the biggest fumble. Like they had a super compelling kind of sci-fi drama based on the Bible, and they couldn't sell that. They couldn't sell that show to people. Incredible. What a fumble. Destructo Monkey. If you can find Kings to watch, it rules. I mean, it really it's like it's such a fucking cool concept for a show. Just taking the story of David and Jonathan and King Saul, and then putting it in like a sci-fi world. It's so compelling, and Ian McShane is incredible in it. My favorite Altman is the player. Someone asked me if I like the Coens. I love the Coen brothers. I have my favorite Coen, my two favorite Coens. I'll just tell you my favorites. One of them is like kind of cliche. Whatchamacallit? No Country for Old Men. But my other one is The Hudsucker Proxy. I fucking love that movie. And Barton Fink. I love Barton Fink. And A Serious Man, which I feel like A Serious Man A Serious Man is like, the Coens, two middle-aged Jewish men from the Midwest. That movie feels like this one's for the boys kind of deal. But I find A Serious Man so compelling. Yeah, I find myself saying Cy Abelman all the time. No, so here's the thing. Just because I said my favorite doesn't mean I dislike other ones. Like I love "O Brother, Where Art Thou." I love True Grit, which is actually the first Coen movie I ever saw. I saw it when it came out in theaters, and I was like, "This movie rules." And then I kind of, I think A Serious Man is just like one of the best cinematic meditations on God that's ever been put to film. Just like straight up. Someone asked me the best cinematic representation of my experience in the South. I don't know. Does it exist? I grew up in like the middle class suburb. I don't know. What's my biggest rewatchable? Like no amount of viewings is too many. There's one movie, baby. It's The Fugitive. I love The Fugitive. Is it my favorite movie? I don't know. It might be. I gotta update my letterbox for. It might be The Fugitive. I can't. I will never get tired of that movie. I'm answering questions from YouTube, Twitch, and TikTok. I mean the Harrison Ford movie. I don't mean U.S. Marshals, which is bad. I mean The Fugitive, 1993, directed by Andrew Davis, starring Harrison Ford. I love everything about that movie. You, you find that man. The thing Harrison Ford does with his finger is so good. It would probably after that it would probably be The Hunt for Red October. Have I seen The Firm? I own The Firm. I have a 4K of The Firm. I love The Firm. That those movies like the various thrillers of the 90s, legal thrillers, erotic thrillers, political thrillers, military thrillers. Though those are my comfort movies. I love those movies. I could watch them any time of day. I am a De Palma enjoyer. Favorite Hong Kong East Asian action film? That's a great question. I mean, is it too cliche to say A Better Tomorrow? Which I think is like on the more melodramatic end of John Woo. No, if is there like a John Woo box? Because I would love a John Woo like Hong Kong box set. Like, give me a Better Tomorrow 2, Better Tomorrow 3, Hard Boiled, The Killer. Like, give me them all. I have not seen The Furious yet. I would really like to. Opinion on Disclosure Day. I don't know how I don't know how I feel about it. Honestly, it's a movie I need to watch again. Yeah, I say that is there a box set, but I do have the Killer and Hard Boiled on 4K, and I do think Arrow has a Better Tomorrow box set. But okay, but also I love all three Police Stories. Police Story 2, and Police Story 3 Super Cop. Thoughts on Wachowski's Speed Racer? I will just say that I watched that movie high out of my mind, and it was a transcendent film viewing experience. One of my favorite. Miss Rouge Warrior, my Twitch handle is um, uh, jboy underscore, or just jboy MIT or something like that. But I mean, I'm sure I'm answering YouTube questions as well. Any recommendations on staying productive with young children? I mean, when last week, like my wife went back to work. She's a teacher, so she was back to work for before school planning and everything, and the kids were out of camps, and so they were home for like a week and a half, and I just had to take the time off. Like, I was not able to work and also have them around at the same time. If there's like one of them, like my oldest will read, and then I can work, take a break, hang out with them, go back. But both of them, we have to be doing activities or they start losing their minds. So I don't know. I think there's one good Star Wars prequel. I think Revenge of the Sith is the only watchable ones. Yeah, okay, so I mentioned this in my newsletter. I was like, I had to do childcare duty, and people were like, "Oh, you call it childcare duty, but your wife does it all the time." And it's like, okay, first of all, you people know nothing about my life, so chill out, you know, chill out. Second of all, I'm the one who works from home. My wife she goes to a place and works from like 7 to 4, 7:30 to 4. I'm the one who's at home, who actually takes the lead on most domestic stuff and a lot of the childcare. So slow your roll. But back to Speed Racer. Speed Racer is a big budget experimental movie. I just think it's visually incredible. I don't know. I felt like the final sequence of Speed Racer. I just felt was like I felt like me watching it. I was in a flow state. Thoughts on new track? I blah, blah, blah. I dipped out of Discovery. I thought Picard was bad. The only new Trek that I really truly like is Lower Decks. I love Lower Decks. I have it on Blu-ray. The other thing is strange. Like my preferred Trek era really is TNG, DS9, like all of that. And so I just, Strange New World. I don't find TOS or TOS derived things to be that compelling. And I do agree that new Trek writers don't understand Trek. First, I think new Trek writers are. How about this? I think new Trek writers don't get that Trek is utopian. Trek is utopian. It's a utopian show about people who want to do something bigger than themselves. I think why Lower Decks works is because ultimately all the characters are about that. Like they believe in Starfleet. It's supposed to be fun. They're supposed to be enjoying themselves, solving problems, but they believe in Starfleet. They believe in the mission. So and Lower Decks also it gives you like the fact that it's so long, right? This is the other thing about Trek that this is the thing about Trek that I'm not sure that like new Trek really gets. It's that like a season of Enterprise of Next Generation is like 25 episodes, and you'll get like some duds in there, but you'll get just a lot of sort of like day life a day in the life on the Enterprise, holodeck episode. Just like so much of the shows is they have this sort of like you're getting to know these people as a family, and Lower Decks is that. Honestly, I think that if ever there was a time for a utopian kind of Star Trek, now is the time. Right? Now is the time to be like better things are possible. But yeah, Trek has a lived in quality at its best that I think that I like. Yeah, back to Speed Racer real quick. The thing I like about that movie is it is pure. I think the Wachowskis were aiming for pure cinema, like a movie that is all about the visual experience. Everything is geared towards the visual experience of film. Metroid's 40th favorite Metroid game if I've dabbled. So I loved Metroid Dread. I had a great time with that. After I played Metroid Dread, I replayed Super Metroid, which is a masterpiece. It actually was really interesting playing Metroid Dread and then going back and playing Super Metroid again and being like, yeah, with Super Metroid, they just nailed the formula. Not only did they nail the formula, but I'm not sure it's ever been done better than this. Like other Metroid games are great. I think Metroid Fusion is great. I think that, Metroid Prime, I played that when it came out the first time around. Metroid Prime is great. The Metroid Prime series is great. But when it comes to just sort of like the core formula, I'm not sure a game has still done it better than Super Metroid. Super Metroid is a flawless game. My favorite modern Metroidvania, actually my favorite, if you can call it modern, is Castlevania Dawn of Souls. But that's not really modern. That's like 20 years ago. Um, my favorite horror movie is whatchamacallit? The Thing. I am excited for the new Castlevania because I loved Dead Cells. Dead Cells, like I was horribly unproductive at my job for like 2 months because of Dead Cells. Dead Cells nearly ruined my life. I was like staying up till 1 in the morning playing Dead Cells. Same with Hades. I had to stop playing Hades, like straight up. I'd be like, yeah, I'm gonna play Hades for like 30 minutes, sure, 45 minutes. 4 hours later, it's 2 in the morning. Um, Blatro also ruined my life. Any hobbies you have interest in but haven't gotten into for whatever reason? This is going to sound crazy when I say it out loud. Um, but shooting guns. I live down here in the South. It would not be hard for me to get a firearm, and I think I'd have a lot of fun actually target shooting. I think I'd actually be pretty good at it. Thinking about sort of the things I am good at, things that require precision and patience, I think I'd be very good at target shooting, um, and I kind of want to get into it, but I also don't like the idea of having a gun in my home, just with my kids. I don't like it. I don't like the idea of having a gun around. If I could find the place to sort of like, I'm sure they exist, sort of just like a gun, like a place where a gun locker where I can just lock it up and only go to another location to get the gun to do all that kind of stuff. Then I would do that. Yeah, I would write a column about it, right? Like I became a gun owner. But see, I wouldn't want to do that. That's the kind of thing that I find. I would rather just make it a thing that I do, a hobby, and then, you know, if people ask me about it, I'll talk about it. But I'm not gonna make it part of my professional personality, you know. Hayden Panettiere, she died? Holy crap. Oh. 36 years old. Jesus Christ. Fuck. No news on what happened, but I know she had struggled with the addiction. Her brother died suddenly a couple years ago. I wouldn't be surprised if it was like a, unfortunately, like classic kid actor situation. Fuck. If you're missing, someone said that Hayden, I can never say your last name, Panettiere. But she died. 36. Very sad. It's someone said I've been thinking about death lately as a newly into my 30s person. I'm one of those people who likes to walk around cemeteries, and I have since I was like a teen. Like I've always been kind of, I wouldn't say preoccupied with death, but like I think about it a lot. Especially as I'm pushing 40. And I think the thing that really gets me now is like someone dying at 36. I'm just sort of like, God, that's so young. I had goth tendencies in high school. It's just so young, you know? The girl from Heroes, that's right. When a thing that really fucks me up consistently is when, rappers die at like when MF Doom died, when fucking Coolio died, with like these rappers, these black men dropping dead like at 50, 51, 52. That actually legitimately shakes me up. I stay pretty healthy. I go to the doctor, all that stuff, but it shakes me up. No, okay, you have to. I said I have goth tendencies. I wasn't a goth. I just, I have that sensibility. But if you were to find pictures of me as a teenager, you'd be like, that kid looks like he was into student government. And in fact, I wasn't. I was like class president for 2 years. Yeah, Michael K. Williams, another one. Dilla, Lance Reddick, Andre Brower. Me with sideswipe pains. That's very funny. No, but yeah, 36. Man, that's rough. That's really rough. Feel really bad for her, for family, for her kids. That's the other thing. I just think about my these days. I just, the primary reason I have for like wearing a helmet when I ride my bike, or like making myself, like, I run like 3 miles a day, like making myself run 3 miles a day, watching what I eat. Like my primary reason for that is my kids. Um, all right. Kind of a downbeat end to the stream, unfortunately, but you know, such as it is. Okay, I will. Someone on the TikTok mentioned, I remember how old I thought Heath Ledger was when he died. I remember I was in. We were about to sit down to talk about on the revolution in France in my political and social thought seminar in 2008, when we got the news that when like someone was like on their laptop and they shouldn't have been and saw that Heath Ledger died, and the entire class just sort of like stopped. Yeah, Jonathan, we were talking. I was playing Fire Emblem before, and then I died, which was embarrassing. And then some news broke, and we're being old now. Anyway, I do need to call it quits. I gotta get up at like 6 in the morning. So thank you for joining the stream, this Sunday evening stream. I think we'll be doing another stream Wednesday afternoon, so stay tuned for that. And I'll see you guys later. Will I ever have a general schedule for the AMAs? Unfortunately, no. And if this ever became my full-time job, sure. But as it